I'm so excited to dive into another pre-symposium panel. So a pre-symposium panel is the lead-up panel to our executive symposium, which is coming up so crazy rapidly. Next week, February 12th, we're going to host the event at the Round Rock Express Baseball Stadium. The topic is Change Without Burnout, Balancing Innovation, Stability, and Team Capacity. And so what the pre-symposium panel does, it's a gathering of leaders who are going to be at the upcoming executive symposium to share their thoughts, their insights, and their perspectives on how they've been able to initiate change without burning out their team and keeping everybody excited about innovation and all those fun things that need to occur for us to move our organizations forward without stagnating. So we've got three great leaders here with us today. We've got Angela, we've got Ben, and we've got Becky. Thanks for being here, Angela. Do you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Angela Mincey. I am the Chief Operations Officer for Air Vault, DOOH. We're at the intersection of clean air and advertising. So we're like sustainability and marketing.
Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Particle 41. We're a digital transformation partner. We've launched over 94 products to market, and yeah, we're here to help our clients with outcome-focused teams.
Perfect. And Becky, how about you?
I'm Becky Richter, the Director of Business Administration for DAC in Houston, Texas. And we do building automation and smart building technologies. We exist to build a better world through smarter infrastructure.
Love it. And I'm Garrett Mintz. I'm the founder and CEO of Ambition in Motion. Our vision's a world where the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they are there, their expectations meet reality, and when they come home, they feel fulfilled. We believe that starts with leaders because leaders create the experiences employees have while at work. And so we create technologies and communities to empower leaders to be their best selves for their teams. And one of the ways that we build community is through executive symposiums, where we bring leaders together to discuss challenges and ultimately to recognize that we're not alone, and ultimately we're all probably going through these changes together. And how are you going through it? And maybe I can learn something from you. So let's dive in. Topic is change without burnout, balancing innovation, stability, and team capacity. Right now we're in this really, I feel like it's an exciting time period. We've got all this AI initiative, we've got all these technology, initiations, or just even just an increasing scrutiny on our operational efficiency, even if it's not technological based. Maybe it was just like, hey, this was a process that was set up 20 years ago because whatever, we were quick and we needed to have a stopgap, and then it never changed ever since then, and everyone became accustomed to it, and you're like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. But sometimes people become so accustomed to the way things have always been that they don't maybe fully understand why the change is being initiated, or maybe they understand why, but maybe they just like think like it's fine, like it's okay if we're not as profitable as we could be, or like as long as I get my paycheck at the end of every 2 weeks, why should I care about making the company more profitable? So my first question when it comes to this topic is, how do you get your team to buy into change that's going to make the business better if their compensation more or less stays the same, if their bonus structure stays the same, if their pay essentially stays the exact same? I just see sometimes a lot of not necessarily reticence, but I don't know, maybe indifference to the change initiative itself, where it's like, cool, this made the company profitable, but it didn't necessarily make me personally more profitable. But I guess I'll start with that. How do you get your team to buy into change initiatives when it's pretty much an obvious business case, but the individuals on the team, maybe their compensation doesn't change all that much because of the change initiative? So I'd be curious to learn, how do you get your team to buy into some of these change initiatives?
Well, I mean, I'll kind of take a little bit of that. I think first of all, you have to communicate that change before you start making it, and you have to make conflict healthy. You have to make the challenge about the idea, not about the people. So if you're working with a team that's, their compensation may not change right now, but maybe their job is changing and their responsibilities are going to change. It doesn't mean they're going to have more or less. It just means that they're different. So having a space for healthy conflict and letting them safely discuss their issues and kind of checking that capacity on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how fast that change is moving, allows them to buy in. It allows them to have questions that maybe they wouldn't want to answer, or maybe they wouldn't want to ask if they didn't feel that safe space. So I think you have to start with communicating the change before you make it, and giving everyone an opportunity to ask the questions and have that healthy conflict.
Yeah, I totally agree with Becky. I think it's just about transparency and also about just displaying that vision. How is this change going to benefit the organization? How is this change going to make your role easier? Or how is this change just going to be an aid to the organization and to the particular role? So I think just communicating that, me at the core of myself, I'm a project manager, so approaching it as a project, and saying, hey, this is, we're going to do XYZ, and this is the business outcome of this, and just being completely transparent and receiving that feedback as well.
And showing them what success looks like, right? At the very beginning, saying this is what success looks like, so they have that transparent why. They understand the why behind what you're doing and how they might be able to adjust or change how they're operating, based in that space, right? That space that says, here's the why, here's what success looks like. Tell me your concerns, tell me your feedback on how this change is going to impact you specifically, your team, second, and the company, of course, as an overall. And then you got to create the how. And I think you have to co-create it. I don't think you can create the how on your own unless it's a necessity of the plan. I think you have to co-create it with the team that's going to be impacted the most, and really communicate workflows and cadences of how that's going to look for them. It's much easier to buy into something if you're a part of the plan.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Ben, jump in.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the collaborative approach. I think as leaders, we can articulate the outcome that we're looking for. Hey, we need to make a change because we need to create a better outcome, and I would add that change should be culture, like part of the culture. So that the idea that things will always stay the same is not generally part of most of our corporate cultures. It's that we're going to change and adapt and be part of. We're going to be good at it. I don't see too many corporate cultures that are saying, "Hey, we're going to be really good at the status quo." Um, and so it should be already part of the culture that, hey, we're looking for opportunities to improve or opportunities to change. We're going to make stuff happen. That's generally a common theme in most of our cultures. So then this is just an opportunity to exercise that. And being good at change is like one of the essential qualities of a professional.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we like to say here is be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to understand that it's going to be uncomfortable for a while, but here's the end result. And again, this is what success looks like. And I think when people can see the long road, it's easier to be uncomfortable temporarily because they understand that it's just a part of the game.
No, I like it. I
Absolutely.
mean, I think all of y'all brought up really interesting points. I mean, Becky, you brought up the point of like communicating change before making the change and just making conflict healthy. Angela, you've talked about transparency and, how the change will benefit the organization. And Ben, you mentioned that, change should be a part of the culture. And I really like all those points. But I want to come back to the kind of like the what's in it for me sort of conversation for the individual employees who's being asked to implement the change. Because even still, like even looking at all these scenarios, like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of an individual employee. Maybe I have a lot of chaos going on in my personal life. And to me, I think to myself, when I go to work, I'm just looking for like the straight and narrow, everything kind of like just like hold stasis because I all this other chaos going on over here. I just want like something to be stable. And when things are changing, it can create discomfort and just this feeling of overwhelm sometimes for some individuals. How do you help make that overwhelm more palatable? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I think for me, we talk about the comfort zone, the growth zone, and the stress zone, and we're creating an opportunity to move out of the comfort zone, increase capacity, and if you're doing that right, you hit a little bit of stress on the other side, right? That's how you know you're growing, is because you're pushing through the comfort zone, through the growth zone, and then maybe you redline a little bit And so when my folks are redlining, then we talk about, okay, how do we improve our capacity? How do we is there training that we need? Is there some delegation we can do? Are we managing our time properly? And some of my directors even talk about, like, with folks, okay, like you're saying you're out of time and you're stressed. How much time are you spending on social media? How much time are you, like, is it really true that you don't have time? And so some of this is like, we're a 100% globally remote organization. So we do have to have a little more of an intimate talk around time management. And so as we see that stress zone happen, it's really an opportunity for us as leaders to have some of those deeper conversations about capacity. And is there being, are artificial limits being imposed on capacity, or do we have a skills issue or a delegation issue, or like where is that coming from? And being willing to kind of dig in there and analyze that with folks has really made a difference for us, because we're trying to address capacity on a person by person level so that we can execute the change. And last thing I'd say on this is, what we're really fighting against is the imposter syndrome. When people feel like, hey, I can answer the call, I can accomplish the challenge, that's actually very fulfilling. What's not fulfilling is, am I really in the right place? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing with myself? That is the more unhealthy thought process.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I also think that certainly you have to have capacity checks, especially when you're going through large changes, right? You have to have that capacity check. But also, people are energized by the bigger picture of the story behind their role. They're energized by that. So you have to show them what the development opportunities are behind the change. You have to show them what their role really looks like. And I also think you have to implement recognition throughout the change. The people that are helping to impact it, people are energized by seeing other people win, and that makes competition very healthy competition, and they're willing to step up their game as well. I do think that sometimes, especially in remote organizations, we're not a remote organization. I do think that there's some leadership conversation around capacity, but in times of change, I don't think that's the right time to have those conversations. I think the right time is maybe after or before, and identifying where those gaps may lead. And then during the change, having those capacity checks, maybe some one-on-ones, some team interactions that say, okay, where are we at? Do we need to regroup? Do we need to reassess the timeline? How's everyone feeling about the load that they're carrying right now? Do you still see the end result? Do you still see the bigger picture? And constantly refocused on the bigger picture behind their role, their team's role, and what it's going to do for the company.
Sorry, Becky, could you say that one more time? I think I like heard it, but I want to make sure I'm hearing it right. Are you saying that during times of change, we should not be trying to evaluate the capacity of the individuals, or we should be doing that during that time of
I
change?
think that we should be having capacity checks. I don't think it's a time to coach them through what may be personal time management issues. I think that it's enough to say, let's have a capacity check. And if you have somebody who feels overwhelmed, having that direct conversation with them in a one-on-one to help them, not tell them that their time management needs to improve, but help them continue to be focused on that future, on what that change looks like and what their role will look like in the future, so that their motivation is for the future, and their motivation doesn't start to become, oh my gosh, I can't, I don't have enough time, and now I'm being told that I'm not doing it. Well, we don't want to have those conversations during times of change. We want to affect capacity in a way that projects the future, not what might be stagnating a team, right? So capacity checks for your team. Where are we at? How do you feel about, moving forward? Do you still have that clear picture and clear expectation of what this looks like moving forward? But otherwise, I think that times of, like, if I have a team member who maybe has a little too much phone screen time during their day, right? And we're maybe falling behind because that person isn't pulling their weight. It could be a conversation to, hey, put down the phone, maybe something like that. But I think that they're more motivated by saying, there's these tools you can use to move forward as you see this change. And when you see it, here's what your role is going to look like. And if you're married to that role, if that's something that you really want, if that's something that you truly believe in, they're going to automatically understand that I need to spend a little more time focused on it. It's just refocusing them to the future of what it looks like, rather than in that moment telling them what they're doing to derail it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't articulating like a micromanagey kind of a thing. It's more when I see when they come to us and they're like, "Hey, I'm really stressed. I think I have too much on my plate." It's more in that time, just like coaching through. Our directors are trained on how to coach through that. Like, okay, because what they're trying to identify is, are we in a stress zone? Have we truly overloaded our teammate, or are we just in the growth zone? Are we in the process of personal change where we just need to move some things around or manage the workload a little differently? And so in that conversation where we think we might be in the, like the employee might think they're in the stress zone, we can have a little more intimate conversation. And yeah, it's always in a one-on-one, not a we're certainly not advocating like a micromanagement of any sort of their personal time. It's just a just more of like when we might be redlining, and they're coming for help with that.
Creating more support and less stress. Yeah,
That's right.
Seeing where they're starting to lose some capacity. And that's what capacity checks are for. We do a lot of project checkups, right? We're always looking at milestones in the project, but we rarely look at milestones in capacity. And there are some. We've all been through it. Every one of us as leaders for sure have been through a capacity issue where we're starting to feel the burnout. And I do think that, Ben, you're right. I think it's more about just creating a support network, less stress, more support. And when you start to feel or see that stress in your team, creating a support network around that through leadership or through team development.
That's great.
Yeah, and Ben, I agree with you both. I do believe that just before going into a big change initiative or a change project, understanding each team player's capacity, not saying that one person should have more than the other, but we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So I think as a leader, just understanding those strengths and those weaknesses, or I won't even say weaknesses, but areas of improvement to meet goals actually helps to manage that stress and just to get to the finish line. I also think it's extremely important when we're talking in regards of timing to phase change. It shouldn't be one big lump, like let's do this as a marathon, let's do this in pieces, let's make it here, let's make to this mile marker, and then we're going to make it to this mile marker, so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. It's a little more digestible.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if you do have to expand that, if you do have to contract that into a small period of time, making sure you're communicating that way ahead of time to say, again, like I said before, it's going to get uncomfortable, guys. It's going to get uncomfortable for a hot minute. Here's what it's going to look like. Walk with us through this path, and at the end of it, here's what it looks like. Sometimes you do have to restrict that time frame of change. And when you do, it can feel chaotic if you're not transparent to your team about what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I encounter a lot of where it's a prioritization problem on the individual manager. They're trying to figure out, okay, wait, they're in overwhelm, and so if I can just say, well, what's the one thing that you could accomplish this week that would make the future weeks more streamlined or more organized? Sometimes that's like, oh well, wait, if I just do this SOP, then my team will be more effective, and then the next week I can catch up on these other things. But just helping them think through, and I don't answer that question for them. I just ask the question and force an answer of like, what is the one thing that you should be focused on right now, so that they can work through that overwhelm.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
We're bringing up these really interesting points. God, there's so many questions that I have here. Like, one of the questions that's coming to mind is like, how do we understand our team's capacity? Like, when they're actually redlining versus when they think they're redlining. Like, part of our jobs as leaders is to understand like where our team's actual capacity is, and sometimes we see more in them than they see in themselves, and it's almost like what was it, like the 4 minute mile or something? Like no one had ran a 4 minute mile until I can't remember the guy's name who ran it. And then within a year of him hitting like the 4 minute mile, like 32 other people hit a 4 minute mile. It was just like once somebody saw that this threshold could be surpassed, it became real and possible for everybody else. So I think like that's part of our job as leaders. But then another just like question that's coming to my mind is like the discipline to actually parcel out the change and not put it all in one lump because we all, well, not all of us, but some of us have boards likely or leaders that we're working with or even just customers that are like go 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 make it make it make it and like you should have been doing this stuff yesterday and we feel this sense of maybe anxiety or pressure or whatever to like make some of these results happen and we know that if we don't our board, our leadership, our customers will think we're incompetent and can't handle their requests.
Yeah.
So those are like the two big things that like I'm thinking to myself like how do we stay disciplined around the change and setting expectations up, whether it be to our customers, our board, our boss, whomever, and you know keeping our team's capacity at its
Yeah,
peak without burning
I
out.
get really creative when change is in motion, and it's because of like my effort is to initiate the change and get to a plan, and then the team is executing that plan, and that's like my next creative cycle. So I have to be really careful. I have made mistakes in the past where I'm like, so everybody's working the last change. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we and
Ah,
come in with the Howard Hughesy big idea, and they're like we just started executing the change you just gave us. So I love the word you used there, Garrett, discipline. Over time, I kind of learned like, okay, like I need to let this simmer, let them cook, as the kids say, and then I'll just hold my idea and I'll refine it, and not have a Howard Hughes moment right in the middle of their peak change activity.
well, I also think that, I mean, and that's an excellent way to look at it. I also think that we have to be aware of what we bring to the change initiative, right? So there's going to be the people that are coming up with the idea for change, whether that's your client, whether that's your strategic team, whoever. There's a group of people that are the idea people, and they finally get to a place where they say, okay, the idea is this. We can't, and then you have people that discern those ideas. They basically take the idea and they start to ask questions around it, and they say, how is this going to work, and how they start to poke holes where holes need to be poked. If you start to ask idea people to get involved in the discernment conversation, you're going to get derailed, right? So you have to really understand what your role is there. Is my role to pick holes, or is my role to refine this idea? Once I've picked the holes and we've decided on how, now there's the action. There's the actually putting together the change. You have to go through that process, whether that takes a day or a week or however long it takes before you implement a plan. And once you implement the plan, you have to stick to it, even unless there's a reason to effectively change a milestone. You have to stick to the plan. And if people come up with ideas around that plan, you have to already have answers for that because you've already gone through the discernment process before. And so you really, that's the clarity, right? That's the clarity for the plan. So once you have that in place and you say, okay, here's our plan, here's how we execute, you as a leader need to check in before the check-in is due. And that's how you figure out where capacity is. If my check-in with the team is next week, I'm going to start to poke and ask a few questions this week. Hey, where are you doing? Do you need any assistance with that? Is there some way that we can help you? Do you have the tools that you need? That way I'm not asking the day that the milestones due and wondering why it's not complete. I'm along the way saying, this is the plan, here's how we implemented. That way, if there is change that's needed, we're doing it before the milestone is due, right? We're recognizing that through those conversations and through that initiative to say, I got ahead of it. The milestone's due next week. You're now telling me today one of the tools is broken. Let's get in front of that so we can still meet the milestone and not just waiting until the team meeting next week to find it out.
How do you reprimand people, even potentially your boss, when they abuse that? Like the way I like to look at it is the classic planning a family vacation. You're putting ideas together about what everybody wants to do. You're going to be gone for a week or 5 days or however long you're gone. You're like, oh, on this day we're going to do this. On this day we're going to do this. Everyone's like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Great. So now it's like 3 days before the vacation. Like, hey, everybody, here's the itinerary. And then someone jumps in and is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who said we were going to do this? It's like, hey, man, this was part of the deliberation phase months ago. You could have voiced your opinion anytime throughout this period. Now, 3 days beforehand is not the time. We've already put in non-refundable deposits for doing this or doing that or whatever, and it's too late. We're going to do this thing, and like, if you want to refine it, if you want to like help us choose a different lunch spot we go to after we do that activity, fine. But by then, it's too late. I guess does that question make
Yeah,
sense?
it does, but I think I go back to what Becky was saying. How has the fundamental rules for success changed? Right? Does success look different now? Like, are we really shifting the outcome? In which case, that would warrant like a replanning. Like, wait a minute, the outcome is different. This is not the same project anymore. And then, if it is the same outcome, but we're having a disagreement on the approach or the how, I think there's the what we kind of talk about culturally is this open-handed grip. So are we trying to control it, or are we flexible? Do we have this kind of open-handed grip? And and I think if that voice of like, oh wait, this is the wrong thing, is coming from somebody trying to say no to the change, then that is like, wait, we need to take that aside and say, like, this is happening. There's some resistance here. Whatever you resist is going to persist. So let's pull that out and just get resistance out of the way. But if it's like, no, 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 fundamentally, my brother is a chief warrant officer in the Army, and he tells stories about how, the general wants to move 60 people with 2 gallons of gas. And it's like, no, like, fundamentally, this will not be successful. Let's try it this other way so that we will lead to more success. If it's that kind of upheaval, then we need to have an open-handed grip and kind of roll with it, because that may be different people getting involved to make the change successful. So that's kind of my order of operation, to say like, okay, is the success fundamentally changed? Are we just resisting, and then let's deal with that quickly, or are we just learning together how this change should be done? In which case, let's roll with it and be flexible.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I totally agree with that. I think, just with reference to you saying moving the 60 people with 2 gallons of gas, I think just setting that proper and realistic expectation before getting started. Hey, this is not going to be possible. I know you want this. I know you want this yesterday. However, with the resources we have, it's just not possible. So I think just going into any change or any project, being very realistic about risk and contingencies and outcomes and resources, because as we all know, sometimes in organizations you might have one team working on every project, and those things just have to be considered when it comes to, we want to do XYZ, but is this realistic? And that may mean pushing out the date, that may mean reprioritizing, but definitely just being transparent and realistic.
Yeah, and I also think that just on a basic level, it needs to be documented and everybody needs to understand their role in that initiative. There's a difference between delivering a project operationally that we all might have to gather around and get done quickly, and strategic change. Strategic change should always be well thought out and documented. I mean, here at DAC, we work very specifically with a one-page strategic plan. We visit that plan weekly as leaders. We visit it monthly as a strategic group, and we visit it quarterly for an entire day to make sure that we're aligned. We are constantly looking at our strategic plan to make sure all those things. Do we have the resources? Is the change effective? Is it still in line with what we're trying to do with the organization? But it's documented, and all of us on that team know exactly what our part is. I walk away from that strategic meeting and I deliver that to my team. Now my team knows what their part is and my part to the bigger plan. It's documented. Once it's documented, changing it should take time, effort, and should be painful. We all worked really, really hard to get to this plan. We all worked really hard to document our responsibilities around it. Short of effective changes in the organization that were unforeseen, it should be difficult at best to change a plan for change, if that makes sense. That
Yeah.
sounded a little weird to say it out loud, but you know what I mean.
No,
Yeah.
I think it makes tons of
No,
sense.
and
Great.
yeah, changing that strategic plan is a little more like turning a cruise ship
Yeah.
than it is a speedboat, and that's not a bad thing. Like, so that everybody can get aligned. I think organizations can be quite thrashy if large strategic change is too fast, and that's just part of being a good leader. Like, your lack of strategy is not my emergency, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That is a true case. But then talking openly as an executive team about, like, what is that radius of change? Like, can we turn 90 degrees in a quarter if we had to? Because that may be also a sign of maturity.
Right. And if we do, how do we communicate that and be transparent to the organization on what that's going to look and feel like? Because people feel it before they see it. So again, I'll go back to being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right. Love it.
I want to jump back into that because, I do feel like we've not talked enough about this concept of how do we get the actual, how do we empathize with the people side of things, of like, where are they coming from? I don't know if we've talked enough about that. And like, really, if a change initiative is going to make the business more efficient, more profitable, more productive, whatever, but it doesn't actually impact their compensation and will likely create stress on the way that they do work on a day-to-day basis. How, what is an effective way to communicate this change about like what's in it for them?
I mean, I feel like to some degree your culture should start that. There should be a culture for an understanding, and Ben made this point earlier. There should be a culture for understanding that organizations change. Living and breathing things, they change, just like people. So if you have employees that aren't bought into your culture, they're never going to buy into the change. So you have to start from culture. The second thing is the what's in it for me is that's on them to some degree. If we've shown them the future, if we've shown them what their capabilities are, what their career path may look like, and how their portion of that change is part of their development as well as a professional, and they want that, then I don't think you really have an issue with compensation. I think that they understand that as they see that change and you have that career path in front of them, they buy in because they believe in your purpose, they believe in your mission, and they believe in your culture. If you don't already have that when you affect big change, you're not going to get that from those people anyway. If there's people out there that just want to come to work and do a job, and that's okay. Don't bring them on the change team. Let them come to work and do their job. Find people that want to be a part of change and want to see their roles change. And that's easy to find a way to compensate them in the future through career path and career development. You can show that to them, you can show them the future of it. But honestly, if you don't have that buy-in from the beginning and your purpose and your vision of a company and what your company's doing, it's way harder to get it when you're going through change.
Let me ask this another way. I'm kind of gonna lead to the answer I'm asking for, kind of ish a little bit. Um, because you're kind of touching on it, but kind of the question I'm asking for is like, what are your thoughts on helping the individuals jump into the boat with you and helping them be a part of it? And by that, I mean like, you know, leveraging vulnerability to share like, maybe give an example of like, hey, we're implementing this change because our competitors are moving really, really fast. And for our business to be viable moving forward, for us to be able to pay the salaries that we pay and have everybody working for the team in the way that we're currently working, we have got to be nimble enough to make these changes, or else we as a business might not be able to thrive and succeed anymore in the way that we're existing right now. And so when I put that out there to you, employee, are you on this boat with us, or, are you resistant to this? And I don't know. I'd be curious to know, is that something that you've ever used? Do you find it helpful? Do you not find it helpful? I'd be curious to know, does that concept ring true or resonate at all?
I think it rings true. One thing that all organizations should do is talk about the organization out loud to everyone, either on a scheduled basis or through your leadership or through your management channels. One thing that we do at DAC is have a quarterly company meeting that's an all hands meeting. And we talk about our strategic plan. Are we meeting it? We talk about the different areas of our organization that might be falling short and might need some support. We talk about the wins. We always talk about the wins because when you talk about the wins, other people want to be talked about. They want to hear their name in those meetings. So we say those things out loud. This department or this person or this team has done an amazing job at this toward our strategic plan. We're open about our plan. We're open about where we are. We talk to every single one of our employees about it. We have newsletters about it. We are about as transparent as you can be about where we're trying to go. And we have open door policies that allow people to come in and go, what the actual heck are you guys doing? This is gonna derail my year. And then we address that as needed when that happens. And honestly, I think transparency is the only way to do it. You just have to keep talking about it because the more you talk about it, the more you're going to start to divide the I will and I can to the I won't and I don't want to's. And you'll start to see that attrition to some degree for the people that go, I'm kind of done with this change. I really like this small organization I joined 20 years ago, and that's where I want to stick to. And that's okay. We're okay with that. What we don't want is for people to be silent. So we can't be silent. We have to be out loud all the time. Here's where we're headed. That's my thought on it.
Yeah.
Do anybody have
So,
any dissenting points or any disagreement?
I
No,
don't
I was actually taking notes that I need to do a little bit better job of that, the bigger picture, the market reality. And then I was also reflecting on as people push like AI initiatives and stuff on their people, how that feels. So that probably feels a little bit different than like, hey, we all need to work really hard together to hit these new numbers. And then now what most organizations are probably doing is, hey, we need to really work hard to adopt AI. So, and then the subtext is there so that you're not as needed. And so that was where my brain was stuck. Sorry, Angela, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no. Go ahead, keep on.
No, I'm good. I cooked.
Well, I lost my train of thoughts.
Well, I would say this, the other thing that we do that's really helpful, and I for sure for my team, because the team I lead is really diverse throughout our organization. It's HR, it's safety, it's fleet, it's administration. They're in all parts of our organization. So I have to be really clear and transparent with my team because they affect the entire organization. So we have very specific key performance indicators, and we have dashboards all over our offices, all over our systems of management that show people where we are today in real time. If our measurement for gross profit in this part of the organization is this, here's where we are right now. We're transparent about that. If I give you a goal and I say this is what success looks like, I have to also give you the measurements for success so that you can measure yourself against it. I just think that a lot of companies are really not happy about or not excited about being transparent about numbers or about plans. We all want to be like these amazing leaders that just one day suddenly you have this amazing company. But the fact is our company is about people. We're looking to be the most sought after people for smart infrastructure, not the most sought after company. So if I want the most sought after people, I have to give those people the tools and the measurements that they need to help themselves be successful.
No, I like it. I would say my point of dissident, I don't even know, I think it agrees, but it's just a point here is you talked a lot about like the wins and the transparency around like the strategic plan and the wins. I also think like the vulnerability around the like sanctity of the business itself is okay. Like I think Ben, you bring up this point of like the AI conversation so we can, drive efficiencies, which the subtext to that is like reduce headcount. Um, if as employees we hear that and we think, oh, this is so we can reduce headcount, this is gonna like cost me my job. I think if we can be more open about like, hey, you know what, our competitors are doing this. And as a business, like reducing some jobs, but being able to stay afloat and have our pricing be competitive and do all these things that we're able to do more efficiently. If it allows us to like retain a business that's allowed to employ all these other people and do all these things, it makes the business so much better. If the message is like, hey, do this so we can reduce, like, be more efficient with the subtext of reduce like headcount later on in the future, it's not probably that motivating. But I think if the conversations around like, hey, us as a business as a whole might not be able to exist in the next 5, 10 years if we're not able to adopt this AI right now to get out ahead of it. I would like to believe more people will adopt that, and the people who like aren't really meant for the team in the future will leave. They'll like kind of self-select out and say like, hey, you know what? I want to be in something that's more stable, that like we're not thinking about the sanctity of the business, where I can kind of like come in, do my job, go home, and it's like, cool. If that's what you want, this business is probably not the right one for you, and they can self-select themselves out. Other people will probably lean more into it where they're like, okay, cool. I want to be a part of the future and I want to develop myself and I want to be part of wherever this business goes.
Well, and as leaders, as companies, we have to be okay with people saying, "I don't like it anymore." This isn't a popularity contest. We're growing businesses, and we're doing that for the people in our organization. We're doing that for our communities, and we're doing that for our customers. We have to be okay with if people don't want to be on the team. I mean, imagine if you're on a basketball team and the guy you hired as point guard goes, "I don't really like to play anymore, so I think I'm going to be a forward." I can't put you in any position now if you don't like holding a basketball. I mean, at some point in time, it's okay for us to say, it's been great. We've appreciated everything that you've given us, and we hope that we can support you in the future endeavors. But at this point, the organization needs this. It's not okay to be silent when people are being great. When people are doing great things to help your organization, you need to recognize that out loud in public as much as possible. That is how you motivate other employees. That employee is already motivated. That's why they're doing great things. But when you recognize that for your organization and you do that out loud and people hear it, a natural competition exists, a natural thing that says, I want my name to be up there. I want somebody to say that my team was great. And if they're engaged and they care about your purpose, they're going to start working harder toward it. They're not going to let AI and the possibility of that get in the way. They're going to say, I'm a human. I still have to interact with AI, and this is the future of our business. How can I affect change on my own to make sure that I'm not replaced by AI? Some of that's personal responsibility. And the more people that you have in your organization that take that responsibility seriously, the better off you're going to be.
Cool. Well,
Absolutely.
Angela, Ben. Oh yeah, Angela, were you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say I absolutely agree. I think about when I was starting out in my career, when things would be added, duties or tasks or whatnot. I just looked at all of it as, change creates growth and growth creates opportunity. If I help the organization grow, it may create an opportunity for upward mobility for me. So it was just really hard when I was young to discourage me from doing my best job, or even just I understood that, hey, I can take on this skill, and even if it doesn't create opportunity here, it can create opportunity elsewhere. So I think within leadership, it is important when we talk about mentoring and coaching and things of that nature to get employees to see their own personal value as well, like pour into yourself, adopt this change. The more you know, the more you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, Ben, Becky, this has been a great pre-symposium panel. Thank you all for being here. If you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, I want to meet these three great leaders, come to our executive symposium next week, February 12th, 5 to 8 p.m. We're hosting it at Dell Diamond where the Round Rock Express play. I'll post the link to RSVP in the comments of this, but everybody, thanks for being here. Have a wonderful rest.